Welcome to Bloody Good Horror, covering the best and worst of the horror genre since Halloween 2007. Listener discretion is advised.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another mesmerizing episode of Bloody Good Horror. My name's Eric, and I'll be your host for this evening, where we will be discussing War for the Planet of the Apes. This is what happens when you allow evolution in your schools, John.
War, what is it good for? Was the working title of this
Exactly.
film.
Monkey hate claim.
Yeah. I am the host of Bloody Good Horror. Joining me tonight, 5 additional people, at least for a little bit here, for our big announcement. First up, bringing wonderful news to the show, which we'll talk about in a second here. His name is Andy. I think he just remuted his mic.
Dear Lord, Andy.
No, it's still
God
on,
damn
right?
it. There we
Can you
go.
hear me?
Now I can.
Coming in hot.
We're off to a great start, guys.
Like
Let's
a
go.
monkey fucking a football.
Next up on the
What?
show, he's coming to you from Chicago, where he likes to drink beer and sit in his hammock. His name is Joe.
Whoop whoop, fellow ninjas. What
Yeah.
up?
Next up on the show, he builds the web presence of bloodygoodhorror.com and the editor-in-chief. His name is Mark.
And Ass Dan.
Ass Dan. Next up on the show, coming to you from Indiana, his name is Casey.
Hello.
And last up tonight, the business manager of bloodygoodhorror.com. He lives in a swank-ass apartment in New York City with a pool on the roof. That's all you really need to know about him. His name is John Schnars.
Hi, guys.
We-
Full roof John, we used to call him in high school.
We let him be on the show even though he has an MBA.
Oh, you.
I didn't know you played basketball, Joe.
Discriminating bastard.
Let's get right to it here tonight, guys. We have very exciting news. For a few weeks now, we have been teasing the Bloody Good Horror 10-year anniversary. And what we're doing, we are having a movie screening, a midnight screening, and now, finally, with the details right now.
I think we should let Andy
Who's
do
giving
the
it to me?
honors, right?
Andy, give me your best elevator pitch for the BGH 10-year.
Oh, God, you lost me at elevator. But what we're going to be doing, there was a lot of conversations about what's going to be the best way to celebrate all things Bloody Good Horror 10 years running. And when we first thought of this idea, John actually pitched it, and it was an idea of kind of like a film screening and then kind of a party. And so after several months of deliberation and sweaty conversations, Joe can attest to that, we've come up with a movie and a venue. And so is there some kind of like horror movie drum roll we can do here? What do you got, Joe?
We all make spooky noises
Christ's
like.
sake. Wait, what about Mr. Simmons?
Is that That's what
all
we
right,
wanted.
let's just get this over with.
That's what we want. So we're going to be showing, courtesy of the American Genre Film Archive, a brand new 4K restoration of the Stuart Gordon classic Reanimator.
Heyo. I didn't know it was a new. I didn't know it was a new restoration. That's hot.
Oh,
It is. It's
we got
brand
the
new
latest
4K
iterations.
restoration, and we're going to be screening it at Milwaukee's famous Oriental Theater. It's one of the last remaining movie palaces in the country, and it holds a near and dear place to my heart. I've watched a lot of movies there. It's an awesome venue, and I cannot wait to get some new people inside of it.
I don't think you can say that anymore, Andy.
That's
what I was thinking.
Inside a movie palace.
Yeah.
I think it's okay when it's a theater or a rug. Everything
Oh,
else,
I gotcha.
no
Yeah.
dice.
Yeah, so we are gonna be showing Reanimator, and then was there anything else, Schnars? Like any other new deets?
There's more, yeah.
There
There's
is
definitely
more.
Andy's got it.
There is more. Prior to the screening, we are throwing what we're kind of loosely calling the most difficult horror movie trivia contest ever to be crafted by human beings. It's called Back to Spooky School. And we are hosting that at a distillery, one Great Lakes distillery in Milwaukee. So not only are you going to be down with Reanimator, you got to come out to the distillery, you got to test your metal, you got to show people what you're made of spooky season wise.
Yeah.
There will be custom cocktails. There will be much celebration.
Who is going to come up with the trivia questions?
We've solicited the erstwhile homeless professor of Bloody Good Horror to help out with that, but
nice.
something tells me we're going to need a lot of input from the crew. So
Yeah, but if we all give input, then we can't compete. Which is
I was
going to
say, so there's a couple ideas we're playing with. So Sheldon actually has done bar trivia, like he's like hosted it as like a thing that he does on the side sometimes. So yeah, he's pretty excited to do it. I think the one idea we're toying around with is actually fielding a Bloody Good Horror team. It might, to Andy's point, like we're gonna need some help from some of the team, the broader Bloody Good Horror family to come up with questions. But there is, I think we could probably field a team of potentially like new classers and have them compete against the rest of the community.
Us.
Well, no, we'll be some of us will have to come up with questions.
Yeah.
That's just.
I don't want to do that.
Can we get them matching headbands for the team?
You guys are already ruining this.
It's sounding very complicated.
I'm out.
Casey and Eric, I need you guys to do battle to see who's going to be the MC of ceremonies because we're going to need to make that call.
I could totally do that.
Yeah. We should say October 21st is the date. The movie itself will be screening at midnight at the Oriental Theater. Do we have a time? I forget what time the actual before party starts. At the
so the Back to Spooky School trivia contest, that's going to begin, like the actual doors open will begin roughly around 6:30. We'll create a actual event and ticketing page shortly. For the patrons out there who are watching this right now, we're actually opening up ticket sales to patrons early. We're going to do like kind of like an early August opening on that, and then the sales will go public at a later date. But we're thinking like 6:30-ish for the Great Lakes Distillery portion of the event. And I actually have to do a quick shout out to Great Lakes Distillery. They're coming on as a bit of a sponsor. They're waiving some fees, and they're being like super cool and generous about the whole thing. So we greatly appreciate working with them.
It turns out there's many organizations in the Milwaukee area who are interested in associating themselves with spooky season.
Why wouldn't
so we're
you?
very excited.
Why wouldn't you be interested? You know.
That's true.
Yeah,
that's a fair point.
That's where it's at.
And I'll tell you what, there's nothing better than spooky season in Milwaukee because there's a bunch of weirdos and they're all covered in cheese.
I'm not gonna lie, I have been legitimately worried lately about how I am going to attend a midnight screening of a movie.
Oh yeah,
I'm not. This isn't haha. Eric is an old man. Funny. This is like I legitimately am incapable of staying up past like 10:30 at night.
Come for the booze in the movie and stick around to see Eric literally turn into a pumpkin.
Am I gonna need? Am I gonna need like cocaine or something? Like how am I gonna do this?
Definitely, you are gonna need cocaine.
Actually,
I'll come up with some options for you, bro.
That's actually part of our plans for festivities is to have you perched in the corner as they come in, kind of like a spook house attraction. Is you, goddamn kids, get out of here.
I'm gonna fall asleep and you're just gonna draw dicks on my face and stuff.
Oh yeah.
And the reactions are gonna be so genuine. It's gonna be great.
Like I'm tired just thinking about it.
It's gonna be
you should probably actually just go ahead and preemptively draw dicks on your face so we don't have to do it.
Lots of dicks. So I think the 5 of us will obviously be there. I think we've got right now like 18 confirmed total, so like 15 writers plus the 5 of us, give or take. So
your math is, you know.
Look, John.
There's at least 200 of us attending.
So the 5 of us plus 10 others, so there'll be 34 of us up there. So a lot of BGH representatives in the Milwaukee area on October 21st. It's going to be good.
Nice.
There's a lot of spreadsheets.
So
you want to meet all of your BGH heroes. This is the trip to do it in.
We at some point, I assume, we'll have like a landing page for all this information. I assume it's not out there yet.
Now, people are just going to have to call Andy on his cell phone. Which
my personal cell's out there.
I'll be taking credit card texts.
Text you a picture of your credit card.
Yeah,
and your home zip code.
Snapchats, just Snapchat it up, and I'll get that shit down for you guys.
Are you still?
If you want to just emoji ensure me what you want to attend, then we'll figure it out.
Yeah, no, we will be using Eventbrite to do ticket sales. As Andy said, we're going to post it for patrons probably August 1st. That's the target date. You know, there's some fine print getting worked out on that, but and then probably we'll give patrons a week or two, and then we'll post it, you know, sort of mid-August for the masses. So yeah, look out for it soon.
All right. Awesome. Well, Joe, do you have a beer? You never answered my thing here.
No, I don't. I didn't see the movie. I didn't plan anything. I'm gonna leave now. Actually.
S-O-B. All right. See you, Joe.
Joe, it's been real.
Take care, guys.
Bless your heart.
Bye-bye.
You know what? Let's just jump into it here. We got a lot to talk about tonight, and we got a bunch of pretty good emails, and I'm sure we got some tweets. So, does anybody have anything else to bring to the floor?
No.
Go see Baby Driver. It's a sweet movie. Also, bloodygoodhorror.com. We have a pretty sweet list from Andrew, not Andy, but Andrew, about where places that Wolfman shows up in comics. So he's doing a series on Universal monsters showing up in various comics. I
have always wondered that.
There you go. Started with Wolfman. So bloodygoodhorror.com. Evan is still, you know, suffering his way through Twin Peaks, although I think he's starting to turn a corner to a positive direction a little bit. And also, I wasn't on the episode last week, so I don't know if we talked about this or not, but we did put up a feature about our memories of one George A. Romero who passed away.
We talked about it last week when you forsaken us.
Yeah, so if you haven't seen that, you should check it out. It's pretty cool, actually. I mean, we're a pretty diverse cast of characters of Bloody Good Horror, and I think we all have very different experiences with him and his work. So that's worth checking out if you haven't seen it yet. So there's all sorts of good stuff. And also, Luke has reviewed a bunch of stuff that was screened at the Fantasia Film Festival. So they showed a lot of movies apparently, because I think every day I see one pop up that he's reviewing. So that's worth checking out too.
Sweet.
BloodyGoodHorror.com.
Thank you, Mark. It is time. Let us review War for the Planet of the Apes.
This is it, Jennifer. Your big break in TV. Got the prime time, bitch. Main feature.
And we're back. John Schnars.
Eric.
There's so much happening on a day-to-day basis right now that, like, I can't even keep up to keep my jokes topical because there's always a new tweet. There's always some new fucking nonsense out there.
There's a lot of nonsense, my friend. We're in a world of nonsense, I'd say.
Twitter, it's like 128 characters, and it's very kind of, it comes and it goes, and it's just...
I think it's 140 characters, but
sure,
yeah, whatever number works for you.
It's just farted into the abyss and then disappears. But what I would like to put forth, John, and I think you would agree with me on this, is the idea that words should mean something. You should write them down. You should etch them into stone. You should really mean what you say.
Yeah. No, I mean, they don't have to be etched into stone. You could just, say them out loud into the air and have them mean things.
The thought would be nice, though.
That's true.
Just saying. John.
Yeah.
As my champion of words, this is like Game of Thrones when the Martell Prince told Tyrion he would be his champion. You are my champion.
Oberon.
And you don't get a choice. It's not like you're volunteering.
I just worry I'm going to become your Jeff Sessions to your Donald Trump. And
I have.
You're gonna have to throw in a couple "I do declares"
every morning.
I have often described you as the beleaguered business manager of Bloody Good Horror.
I mean, his favorite Looney Tunes character is not Foghorn Leghorn for nothing.
Yeah. I say, boy. Okay, John Schnars, champion of words. My champion of words, please bring us the word of the day.
Eric, today's word, hopefully not a spoiler, but maybe we'll get into it. Today's word is retrogress.
Oh.
That is RETROGRESS. And the meaning, go back to an earlier state, typically a worse one. And the origin here is a little silly, but retro means back. And they say that it is an early 19th century combination of retro and progress. So there's probably, if I did more research, we could probably come up with a better, one. But yeah, retrogress. Do you want me to explain what that has to do with the film?
Sure,
or should we
I
get
don't.
to
It's not really material to the larger plot. I mean, it sort of is, but we're gonna
Yeah,
get there
I mean,
anyway.
it is certainly a plot device in the film. So, War for the Planet of the Apes, the third film in the sort of new Apes trilogy, prequel trilogy, I guess you would say. In the film, one of the elements of the original Planet of the Apes film that they sort of like tie up is why the humans who are still around in the Planet of the Apes. So this is like the original film. Why they are sort of like sub-ape in that world. And the explanation is actually that the same virus that wiped out all the humans, those who have survived, that virus has now mutated and is actually causing them to like regress or retrogress.
It's like reversing evolution, basically.
Yeah, the mechanics of it are left a little vague. Basically, it just makes them like mentally. Well, it's unclear.
It makes them like the humans in the first movie, like
Yeah.
savages, sort of.
Well, because they're not even necessarily like incapacitated mentally. Like, and we can get to the
It
specific
seemed like maybe they were,
sequences.
but what? But yeah.
Well, they just can't speak.
Yeah.
They're like incapable of speech. So, yeah, it is definitely a worse state to be in for sure.
Yeah.
So,
John, this whole Champion Awards thing is becoming increasingly nonsensical to me, but I just want you to know I'm gonna stick with it.
no, I just keep spinning.
I will. I know me, John. I will get my groove back eventually.
Good.
What do you tell me about this movie? Who made it? Who's in it? What's it about?
So I did not have time to do as much research as I would have liked. So, but I know a fair bit. So, you guys can keep me honest. War for the Planet of the Apes. It is the final film in the trilogy that began with Rise of the Planet of the Apes and then moved on to Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, and now we are finally at War. It is directed by Matt Reeves, who is fairly familiar to us here. He did direct the Dawn film. He also directed Let Me In, Cloverfield. So actually, I believe we've now covered every single one of his films except his original film, The Pallbearer. Which some of you may remember. That was a 90s vehicle for one of the Friends guys. What the hell was his name? Ross?
Ross, yeah. That's what I thought.
The actor,
Oh.
David Schwimmer.
Yeah, the Shrimp fans, yeah.
Yeah, Schwimmer fans.
Shrimp fans. This website is not endorsed by David Schwimmer, just so you know.
But, wait, is that a real thing?
No,
Sorry.
carry on.
Okay.
Mark knows what I'm
Okay.
talking about.
All right. Yeah, so directed by Matt Reeves, written by Mark Bombach, and as well as Matt Reeves, who had written the previous film as well. Yeah, I mean, this is the conclusion, right? So we pick up exactly sort of where we left off with Caesar and the band of apes, who are all living in essentially the woods outside of San Francisco. The premise here is that at the end of the previous film, and I can't remember exactly. I have not seen the film the Dawn since we discussed it, but there is a moment where that film, the climax of that film centers around a battle between Caesar and Koba. Koba is sort of like an ape that goes evil. And leads sort of like a vengeance-seeking ape tribe to like wipe out humans, and Caesar has to kind of like take him down. But at some point, there is a military call that goes out to a military group in the north, and so that kind of like sets up this film. And so here we have Woody Harrelson playing the Colonel, who is sort of like I don't know. You guys will come up with a better verb for it, but he's an obsessive leader, kind of bent on wiping out the apes at all costs. And so the film is set up.
He's like in the alt-right, basically.
All right, you're gonna go political on it.
I
right
mean,
out of the gate,
the
huh?
movie sort of lends
mix
itself
that
to
with
it.
a little bit of Colonel Kurtz from Apocalypse Now. That's
Yeah.
pretty much
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, that's
Like
okay.
like Steve Bannon meets Colonel Kurtz.
Let's come back. Let's come back to that. But yeah, so essentially the film opens and there is sort of like a military, whatever battalion or group. I'm not familiar with military lingo.
You're doing great, babe.
They are attacking, or they finally kind of found the ape village or stronghold or what have you, and they go to attack, and the apes turn them back and actually like kill a bunch of guys, but they capture 4 of the humans. And Caesar makes this decision to send them back. Essentially, is like, look, like we're showing mercy on these troops. Like, we're here basically in peace. Well, like literally the next day, the colonel attacks again, kills Caesar's wife and son, or older son. The younger son survives, Cornelius. Kills Caesar's family, and that sort of like basically like unhinges Caesar, or if not unhinges him, it at least sort of like changes his POV on how they should handle the humans. So at the same time, they decide like now that the humans know where they are, or at least this colonel knows where they are, they have to flee. And this Rocket and Caesar's son have returned and basically told them that there is this like kind of like, I don't know, promised land. I don't know. Andy will get into some of the symbolism here, but this promised land that they can go live in and live peacefully. So they set out to go there. Caesar goes to attack the colonel. Instead, he finally sort of arrives at the colonel after meeting up with another ape that they run into. Bad Ape. We can talk about him a little bit.
Played by one Mr. John
Steve.
Schnarr's lookalike, Steve Zahn.
Yeah. So they meet up with the colonel, and instead what they find is that the colonel's group has actually intercepted all of the sort of escaping apes, imprisoned them at the colonel's base, and is using them as essentially slave labor to build a wall out of sticks, which is going to prevent or protect them from an attack that's actually coming from a separate human army that is basically coming to like round up the colonel because he's like gone rogue. So that's like the
We're
setup.
building a wall and we're making the monkeys pay for it.
Yeah, that's like the setup here, and I mean, essentially you have the colonel crazy enslaving apes, and now other humans coming down to attack him, and so Caesar steps into that and has to like. It essentially becomes like a prison escape film for a good chunk of it.
It basically turns into like a Holocaust / prison escape movie at some point.
Yeah. I mean, there's some other stuff like I didn't really touch on, but they do meet a woman or a girl who is revealed will be named Nova, who's actually one of the characters from the original Planet of the Apes film. So there's a bunch of sort of like tie-ins that happen. They try to check a bunch of boxes to kind of like connect this back to that kind of original film. And she has that sort of like degenerative human retrogressed disorder where she can't speak, but she's otherwise like sort of competent. It's sort of unclear. So
it actually never occurred to me that she had the same thing going on with her that's talked about later in the movie. Maybe that was a little dense of me.
How did that not occur?
I just thought
wait,
she
you
was
just thought she couldn't talk?
Just thought she was mute. Didn't really
We're
think
really
about it that
gonna blow
much.
your mind when we start talking about the end.
Yeah.
She's kind of
we're like watching all the lights turn on in real time right now. We just need to give Eric a minute.
Hey, Andy, what do you think of these?
Blew it up.
What do you think of these movies in general, and what do you think of this?
Yeah, so I actually rewatched, what was it, Rise of the Planet of the Apes, like right after I had seen War, just because I wanted to refresh myself a little bit. I hadn't seen it in a really long time. And I think that the series in general, I don't think that there's any denying like the technical attributes of it. I think it's incredible to look at, like the series across the board. And I think it's a really, particularly these last two films, they're a really interesting example of actor and director and technology kind of like blending together to make something really interesting and unique. In particular, I think like Andy Serkis as this modern day Lon Chaney, and like that whole mystique is like really fascinating. And so in that essence, I really appreciate the series from kind of like an outside perspective, like in terms of like what it's accomplishing technically and like cinematically. When I'm in it, I'm like fine, like going for the ride. And I think Mark even like tweeted after he had seen it, like how crazy amazing like the wet ape fur looked. And it does. I mean, like it's just like astounding like how good this stuff looks. That being said,
Much creepier when you say it.
Mark's just over here talking about wet fur. It's
Wet
great.
fur.
That being said, like there's definitely more problems in this one, narratively speaking. I think that the very first one in the series is probably the weakest of them. I think that this one's probably like second, and Dawn is probably like my favorite of them.
Yeah, I might.
So,
okay.
that's kind of where I'm at right now.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've seen Rise recently, but I don't know if it holds up super well.
Which one's Rise? The first one?
That's
The first one,
yeah.
Well, when you know where it goes, I guess, like it probably feels like a lot of build-up, like whereas that's kind of the journey in the first one.
I mean, I don't want to take away Brian Cox Monkey Jail from you, but Woody Harrelson Monkey Jail is much more harrowing.
But what the first, I mean, let's talk, like what the first film really did that was so revolutionary though for this series was like really make you emotionally invested. Like that first film was about the relationship between James Franco and Caesar, and James Franco and his father, and like that, and then the way that they kind of tug your heartstrings. Like they kind of went about this thing of like, they started from the problem of how do you make somebody feel for a species that is going to, in the end, we know, overtake humankind. And that's kind of like what they built the first film around.
I mean, like,
which movie are we talking about? Are we?
I was gonna say,
that
like,
movie, or are we...
I will totally go back to the original episode and like talk about Rise, like there. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, like, it's the camera moves way too much, and I don't really want to get into it. But like, I didn't really connect with it as much as I connected with the other ones.
Mark.
Yeah, I think this movie is really flawed, but honestly super fun. I think that one thing in this movie that this has over the other two is that there's a lot more humor. It's weird, like on its face and by the previews, this movie seemed like really dark, and there is a lot of really kind of dark shit in here, especially when it comes to like just not even like veiled allusions to slavery. Like it's just straight up ape slavery in this movie, and that's pretty intense. But the flip side of that is that there's also this like side plot going that's really humorous, where they introduce like a new character who is like full on comic relief, and I don't know if like that's off-putting to some people, but I actually really enjoyed it. I think that there's a lot of I think that maybe I liked Dawn. I think Dawn was a better film than this, but this was just, to me, it was super fun. But I think it suffers a little bit from them trying to sort of button up the story as much as possible. There's a lot of real logical gaps, like especially towards the end, where they have to like, there's this whole unaddressed part of the story that they address in about 5 seconds in kind of the most ridiculous way possible, which made for like a pretty funny cinematic moment, but maybe not the best storytelling.
You're talking about the very, very end?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and I referred to it as a Looney Tunes anvil, and we can kind of talk about it, but that's basically basically what it was.
That's totally
But I don't know. I mean, I thought it was really fun. I'm sure, I know based on the conversation we had, everyone has a lot of really critical things to say about it, and I don't disagree with any of them, but I really enjoyed this in spite of that.
Casey.
So I was really invested in the first two movies. I thought Rise was fantastic. I loved Dawn quite a bit. That's where we first got introduced to monkeys riding horses. I was a big fan of the originals. So going into this one, I've been playing through my head on how this was going to end up. Is it going to tie into the originals directly? Is it going to do something completely different? Is it going to leave us with like a far lead that's going to wind up into where the originals ended up taking off from. Things like that. And I didn't know exactly what I was going to be getting into, but having sat through it, I ended up enjoying it a lot. There's some flaws there. I would say for me, I wouldn't necessarily call it flawed. There wasn't that many problems for me necessarily. There were some issues I had with it, but overall I was able to sit back, enjoy the ride, and I kind of got what I wanted out of this. I got a pretty satisfying end to this trilogy that they set up in the first two movies that I really got invested in, emotionally invested in too. So I think I had a fairly strong ending to that, and they wrapped it up well.
John?
I really like the first two films. I mean, it's funny now having Andy like sort of said that the first one doesn't hold up. I am interested to go back and watch it because I remember really, really liking it.
Now that Andy's trying to gaslight you?
No, I mean, listen, I'll give it a rewatch. I'm kind of curious. I'm sure I'll see it at some point. But and if anything, I like the second one more. I didn't really like this one that much. I just maybe I went in, my hopes were maybe a little too high. I don't know. Like I found the plot like distractingly ridiculous at times. Like there are some. I guess where I like land on it is like if it was like kind of a sillier movie, like if it was like explicitly kind of like pitched to be a little more like just kind of like goofy sci-fi, like I'd be willing, but like the tone that all three of these films set is like very serious and like they're played very, very straight. And they kind of like are attacking head on some like, I don't know, big themes. And this one, it just like, there's just a bunch of like really goofy shit that like just doesn't work. You know, like you can just like look at it and be like, wait a second, like this would never happen. Or like, how is that? You know, and whatever, like I can enumerate things if we want, but like at the end of the day, like I agree, it's like technically really excellent. There's some like really nice action sequences. I mean, Matt Reeves is like good director. Like I don't take that away from him. I just felt like this was the weakest of the three by like a pretty wide margin. And like even the bit with Bad Ape, it's like it kind of was like Dobby the house elf
I
for
can
me.
get down with like this film's shortfalls, but Bad Ape is not one of them.
No, like he was like humorous, but like
What
I
kind
don't
of
know.
monster hates a tiny monkey in a bubble vest? What the
kidding,
fuck
yeah.
is
No,
wrong with
legit.
you?
I actually thought that stuff was really amazing and is a great counterweight to what's basically, like I said, a Holocaust movie, which is really dark.
But what's weird to me, and like correct me if I'm wrong, like neither of the other two films felt the need to have like an ongoing like ridiculous character to like offset what, because it's not like Dawn was like some like uplifting movie. Like it was
Yeah.
also pretty
Yeah.
I mean,
harsh.
the first one definitely has a little bit more humor than Dawn, that's
Do
for
you-
sure. But
Do you remember the scenes in Dawn where the apes are acting stupid so that they can steal the guy's guns? That's like a pretty explicit like comedy scene. They're they're doing this. They're like fake doing the monkey thing to try to fake the guy into like not
but
paying
in
attention.
service of the plot, right? Like I mean,
Well,
Bad
sure.
Ape like has like he moves the plot forward, but like it's just like weird that he like they're like actual like laugh out loud moments or like they're like punchlines in a movie that like just didn't feel like it needed to have them. So even that to me felt like a little kind of off. I don't know. I mean, listen, other people liked it. This movie is like ridiculously highly rated on like review sites and stuff too, which I was like really surprised because
Yeah.
it's not that good. Like it's
So,
just not, I don't
like
know.
coming out of it, right? I felt the things that all of the movies in this series have made me feel, right? Like they excel at the emotional kind of gut-wrenching thing of just really, you really feel, I mean, and they really go down the road here of just watching the apes basically get like tortured and starved and, you know, man's inhumanity to ape and like all this shit, right? Like that's really the most mind-blowing thing to me. What this series has accomplished just overall is that you almost at no point feel any sympathy for the human race. There are individual human characters that you feel for, but like none for the human race, and that's got to be something you could write a fucking book on as to like the
Well,
the pathos of human beings. Just as an aside, like not even to do with this movie.
Well, that's pretty much how the apes feel in this movie too.
I know, but what I'm saying
Exactly.
is, I'm looking at a fucking non-existent CGI, non-human creature, and I'm going like, oh yeah, I mean, I'm siding with the apes basically. It's fascinating. Anyway, so I don't like. I think that this movie gave me the same kind of emotional journey and warm and fuzzies and sads that the other movies gave me, but so like I left kind of feeling like, oh wow, I like these movies a lot, and then I just couldn't get over. I think this movie has a big pacing flaw. I think it gets takes a long time to like. The movie really starts for me when they're in prison, and that's like got to be 45 minutes in at least. And like if everything else felt like it was in service of just getting us there, because the prison is really where the movie has things to say and the main plot starts unfolding, but it takes so long to get there.
Well, it definitely does not have a 3-act structure. Or
Yeah,
like
it's
if
a
it
little- it
does,
has,
it
like,
is
2 acts
so
almost.
skewed. It's
Or
bizarre.
the third act is like the last 5 minutes or something. So I and I think it's a nitpicky thing, but I think the title is a complete misnomer. And as much as I appreciated some of the things I was given, like the second film is much more War for the Planet of the Apes than this film.
Yeah.
You know, like this song is like they should have called the second one War and called this like Requiem for the Planet of the People or something.
I mean, they could have called it Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, right?
Yeah, like
'cause-
it doesn't make any sense. The marketing was really misleading. Literally, I had the poster up early in the video. The poster basically crops a bunch of images that happen in the movie all into one image to make it look like some big epic war is happening, when that is in no way what's happening. And to make it even worse, they tease you in the very beginning of the movie with this sick like battle scene where there's fucking like ape cavalry coming down and like murdering people. Like it's this crazy scene.
Well, they really like front load the war stuff. That's a very like apocalypse now. Like it's I don't know. It's like really, they have some like really cool stuff in the very beginning, and then it's just like not war.
And then in the end, right, when it finally goes down, not to hang too much on my fantasy of like seeing an ape in a general's suit, but like the real war is between.
Whoa. You are not allowed to just say that and then.
No, I said this last week. I said this. Oh, maybe you weren't here, but what I said was like, to me after when the first film ended, right, and the way
dream of apes in uniform.
The way that the first film ends with like these news reports and all this stuff, I really thought that each film was going to take a very large leap in time, and that by the end of it, the apes would be this like the more civilized society, and they would have adopted technology and whatever. I mean, like now that I think about it, it doesn't work because then they cease to be.
You were waiting for the Dr. Zaius haircut, sweater. Jacket.
Yeah, like, but I think that the problem with that is they cease to be sympathetic at that point, and I get it. But when we get the main war here, it's not even the fucking apes are just caught in the crossfire, hiding behind rocks. So I don't really, whereas like the evolution of the second film was like shit, they're on horseback, they know how to use guns, like they're just doing the same shit now, except some of them have war paint on, and we only see it in this one scene in the beginning. And that kind of sucks. Honestly, like I was definitely a little disappointed in that. I think that I also have a big problem, honestly, with like Woody Harrelson in this movie, which is weird for me to say because I love Woody Harrelson and I love his hammy, over the top, sweaty, just like hippie thing that he's got.
Does he
going
have
on.
To be sweating?
Like he's always sweating. He's always sweating. But like
he does sweat a lot.
Especially in True Detective, such a sweaty man.
Yeah, late period.
Louisiana, man.
Late period, like grizzly, hammy, like almost Al Pacino-esque Woody Harrelson. I'm way into that. But I think that this movie is trying to be so serious and touch on these really deep issues. And they cast him and he's way over the top. And then they're giving him like almost every major plot point in this film comes from Woody Harrelson's mouth in like histrionic info dumps. And like at some point, so I guess my overall point is this film is just a little, it's half-baked. Like the other films were really graceful. I felt like in showing their plot structure and their metaphors and like and all, they both were really clean films. And I just felt like this wasn't, like it felt oddly enough, even though it's been years, it feels rushed.
Oh, Eric, you're so right. I'm just so happy to have you here in my camp.
I'm not comfortable with
amazing.
I'm not comfortable with agreeing with Schnars, but here we are.
I mean, like I would disagree that it's half baked. I think it's overwrought. Like I think part of the reason
You
why
think they burned it?
people
Maybe it's burnt on the outside, soft in the middle. What do you think?
Okay,
That's
Let
perfect.
Andy continue, please.
It's like a twice baked potato of a movie. There's like some cream cheese.
God, twice baked
Um,
potatoes are fucking delicious. So
They are.
I
They're-
agree.
all around. But no, I mean, like I think that's part of the reason why the critical response to it has probably been so strong is that it is very talky and it is very much about like these different sects and like groups of individuals having conversations about, you know, like what it means to like quote unquote have humanity or justice or vengeance. And I think that resonates with a lot of people, but for a crowd pleasing like ticking clock plot line, it does not make a good version of that.
I mean, it doesn't. It just. I don't know. I was sounding negative on it. Like I came out of it and I was like, oh, I like that, but it doesn't feel like the final thing, right? Like there's no. You don't get
I
any
don't-
closure because they specifically. You get zero context as to what is happening in the wider world, and that was another thing that really bugged me. Like you didn't really come out of it. I didn't feel like any finality coming out. Like I have no idea if those were the last humans. I don't know. Like they
Yeah.
never tell us.
I mean, I know Casey wants to say something, but like I would agree that like they don't tell you a lot about the outside world, but I honestly kind of like that because
Yeah.
in essence this series is about Caesar. The series isn't really about anything else. Like it's all about like Caesar's arc as a character and like the different films' ability to get you to connect with him as a character.
Well,
Yeah.
go ahead, Casey. I want
I
to
was just
respond to
gonna-
that, though.
I was just going to say that for me, while I could see the points and the complaints and stuff like that, to me it comes across more as a problem of expectations going into this movie because of the way that they advertised this, the way they sold this. I think a lot of people went into this movie expecting something totally different. I think that the movie that we got was still actually fairly good. It's just not the movie that we thought we were going to get so much.
Well,
So-
I think that addresses like some of my complaints, but not all of them. Like I
Yeah.
understand what you're saying, but that doesn't change kind of some of the pacing issues and stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and actually, I mean, I wanted to respond to Andy's point about Caesar. Like, to me, that was the other most frustrating part about this, right? Like, and Eric, you sort of touched on this because, like, if the ideas in film 1 and 2 were really about Caesar, like, in some ways, like, not just like evolving or kind of like becoming more human, like, or human, but then he kind of like becomes like the best human, right? Like he becomes this like really kind of like transformational leader. He organizes the group and like he's able to like subjugate his like baser instincts to kind of like lead the apes forward. And like this film like immediately just like throws that out. It's just like all it takes is like his obviously wife and son being murdered, like that makes him, but like we've seen him already do all this work to intellectualize beyond those types of instincts, and here he just like can't get over it, and like literally
But-
to the end of the film he can't get over it.
Well, and it
I would
should be-
argue that at the end of the film, he does get over it.
Well, all right, but like come on, that's like
That
not
was the
that far for
journey.
him, but that's not that far for him to go when like he started the movie being like again like more human than human, you know. And it's
also,
like,
he doesn't get over it. He literally risks his life at the end in a scene that like, and you know, basically that character going into that is thinking, I'm gonna die doing this, but I'm gonna go murder Woody Harrelson. And the only thing that stops him is like Woody Harrelson has now, spoiler alert, has regressed. So he's like basically just like drooling in a pile on himself and staring and like.
which like this was like that was like the fucking most ridiculous among a lot of ridiculous there's like several things that were like super aggravatingly ridiculous to me, like the fact that happened at all to him when he had clearly been exposed and like yada yada, like his like own son went through it, so it's like we knew that he had been exposed, like if so whatever the mechanics of how he got like that.
Here's my
and
thing.
then the timing of it was like so goddamn neat. It's like what kind of movie is this?
Here's my
Like,
thing.
Did
Here's
nobody
my
else
thing.
pick up that he got infected by the doll?
Oh no, I
Yeah.
did not pick up on that.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
that makes
That's
sense.
why
Yeah,
they showed it
they
there when he was
showed
in the room.
But the thing is, like, you could excise the entire
Either
plot,
way.
the entire plot about humans, like retro whatevering,
Yeah.
kind of didn't need to be there at all. Like you could chop it out. Like the only reason it seems to be there is to kind of dovetail into what we know as the original Planet of the Apes film. But I don't see what it adds to this at all. It's not even brought up until over halfway into the movie. You know what I mean? Like,
Well,
and the only
mean,
thing we know
honestly,
about it is what Woody Harrelson tells us.
I really think that the humans are the worst part of this movie. Like their motivations, the conflict, whatever. Like there's this entire army of humans that lives outside of the base that's going to attack the base, and their motives are like not super clear. It's just like they don't like what is happening inside of the base, which is
just
I don't
what
know.
you're
Woody on
told.
Cheers.
Like, yeah, that's like all you know about them, and you only know that from people inside the base.
Well, and to me, again, like I really enjoyed this movie. So I will just put that out there. And this is just me being critical of the movie that it is, even though in the moment I really enjoyed it. I did think it was really silly that, like, you know, you think that this conflict is going to be about this base where all of these monkeys are basically enslaved. And that's it, right? It's the soldiers in the base versus the monkeys. And then they throw in, oh, well, there are these other humans coming for some very vague reason.
Who you never see. You never see any of them until they show up in helicopters firing. Like there's no. I think that like they miss an opportunity to say something. Like so much of what this series has been about evolution and humanity and empathy. Like you could have said even more if you'd really developed whatever this conflict was between the human factions, but like you never even meet
the idea
other
that
people.
the humans are going to destroy themselves, and that's what the real war was.
Well, I didn't have as much problem with like the two factions and stuff. I mean, they did it all in info dumps, which is a problem, obviously. But like the fact that Caesar was started to pick up on that things weren't right between the humans and stuff when he got there. He's the one that kind of broached the subject with them and whatnot. I think a lot of the problems, like, while I agree those problems that you guys are talking about is definitely a problem, I think that could have been resolved if they would have given us a wider view of what's left of humanity in the world, so we can see kind of how the politics work a little bit. I don't know how they do that, but I think that would have helped make that a little bit clearer instead of just having Woody say, all of a sudden, well, they're coming because they don't like me and my views, and that's why.
Well,
Yeah,
I mean,
it could have just.
we're getting towards the end of this, so I just wanted to talk about this. Like, the silliness of the entire conflict is just underscored by how it ends, which, again, this is major spoiler territory. But they have this crazy scene, which honestly, a lot of that battle scene was super sweet. I thought with like the other monkey kind of like, you knew this, it was like so telegraphed, but like
the donkey,
dude, the fact that fucking donkey character did not like go completely ballistic and like murder a bunch of those soldiers was the biggest wasted opportunity.
That scene though was pretty well done. Like it's pretty brutal when the guy just takes him down.
Yeah, but it would have been that much better done if he would have taken that dude that was on the machine gun and threw him at the.
It is true. It would have been different if it wasn't like just this big ass, scary ass gorilla. You know, like it was supposed to be. Like
all that stuff, though.
Even after to John's point, you expected even after the grenade launcher, if he did that and that was what opened it up, and then he turns around and goes apeshit on the rest of them. Instead, he just stands there as the dude pulls his pistol and shoots him in the head.
That was one of the few. That was the donkey thing. Was one of the few like little plot things that I thought was actually handled really well. It's just so dark, like the way that because they actually address it. You know what we learn is like, and I guess we kind of know this, but they put an exclamation point on it of like, you know, they just want protection. Like they think the humans are going to kill all the apes, and so they kind of defect. But then they're
the
quote unquote dehumanized, and they write they spray paint donkey on their backs. And they call him donkey. It's so fucking dark.
I know. Don't they?
But
like
they're also the faction
like
that
scarred.
took off
That's
Koba.
not spray paint.
Yeah, they were the ex-Koba. Well, yeah.
Which was a good way to wrap that story around too.
Yeah,
well,
I mean,
it's just, isn't it weird that they do that shit? It's like donkey shit, and then like Bad Ape is like fucking yucking it up. Like, it's so weird.
I would defend.
Dude, I think those monkeys were not protected.
I don't know. I think that there's.
I
think that there's enough. There's enough. Okay, they explain it by he's been living by himself for years, so he's kind of batty, and I think there's enough like sincerity to it. Like I don't know. To me, I thought it worked really well.
Well, honestly, it introduces a somewhat novel thought, which is in this world there are wild apes that are evolved, and then there are these humans that are going through this thing. but like it's addressing that there were also monkeys in captivity. So what happened to the monkeys in captivity?
Right, and there's another plot thread that's dangled out in front of you and like never brought home.
I just want to know where he got a bubble vest that fit him perfectly.
Like it seems
when he
Wait,
came
so-
out with that on and that cap, like I laughed.
I
did laugh.
it seems very important, this plot point that they're giving you, that there are other groups of apes that independently on their own became intelligent, and then
Yeah.
nothing is done
It's all
with it.
about evolution. They evolved differently. Where Caesar's, it's kind of tribal,
Yeah.
and Caesar's tribe did that, and then Caesar's tribe evolved around him being able to speak. They developed their language. Bad Ape didn't have that. He was by himself for probably 8 to 9 years.
But it seems like
and he evolved on
They
his
should have
own.
You know,
almost they should have almost had like a group of different kinds of zoo monkeys.
well, it seems
rather
like
than
such
just-
clear at that, especially at that juncture in the plot. It seems like such clear foreshadowing to that being important later on that then it never comes back around. You're like, okay, we're just okay.
I do want to say of all of the, so I want to get back to the human thing, but in terms of in terms of effects, the scene where Bad Ape pokes his head up. I mean, I know you guys had issues with the physics of the pulling people down into the ground, but the scene where he pokes his head up by the soldier's foot, I swear that looked like practical effects to me. Like it was insane. Someone mentioned something.
Yeah.
On Twitter, because I tweeted about the wet monkey fur, and he's
It's
like,
crazy.
fast forward to 2 years where you guys are going to be like, this was really shitty CGI. But I'm pretty sure that we're living in the uncanny valley like that. It's insane to me that they can render monkeys with, like, Caesar has kind of a human face, right? So he's actually sort of the most unbelievable of all of the monkeys. But still, like, you're able to suspend disbelief, and the strength of this series, this like modern version of the series, has always been that the most compelling and most well-developed and most rendered kind of well-rendered, pun intended, characters are the monkeys. Like, this is like the apes are the center of the movie. Like, this movie specifically, I mean, Woody Harrelson is the only like titled human character in this movie, and the rest of it is carried by the interaction between the apes, which I think honestly is fascinating. Because if they tried to make this movie 5 years ago, it would have been distracting because it would have looked, well, I guess we'd have to go back further than 5 years.
Don't
right?
forget Crossbow Guy, who, okay,
Yeah.
here's the thing.
Oh,
I
yeah.
understand bringing a crossbow for like the first volley, right? Because you can sneak up and maybe pick off a guard or something. But maybe
Yeah.
after that, you should have a gun on you so that you don't have to like reload your stupid fucking crossbow every time you're trying to shoot a
Yeah.
monkey.
Oh, what
it's
good?
just
What
like
good is a
one
genre
in a
movie?
million things that don't make any freaking sense.
What good is a genre movie if you don't have a guy with a gimmicky weapon? I don't understand what the issue
Oh,
is.
It's
my
cool, but
God.
just a holster here, just a gun.
I
Just
would have liked a
after-
guy with like a spiked flail and like a guy with
Spiked flail.
nunchucks.
So I do want to say, because I know I'm sounding negative, but like the thing that works so well in this movie for me is like when they're in prison, and there's some like logic leaps in there, but it turns into this great thing that reminded me a lot of, not jokingly, like Brian Cox's Monkey Jail, right? Because one of the most fun things about that first film is watching Caesar kind of navigate and conquer the like pack dynamic or whatever you call it and like taking control of those monkeys and all that stuff. And then and it's different here. I guess I do kind of shun him at first because they blame him for leading them.
Some of them.
And so it's this journey of him like redeeming himself in the eyes of the apes, and then they're plotting to escape and they're trying to execute their plot. Like that stuff to me, that's at the point in the movie where I was like, I could kind of push everything else bothering me away and just really kind of immerse myself in it because I enjoyed watching that stuff.
I would add to the prison scene too. I think it does something big to show that it doesn't all hinge on Caesar anymore. And it kind of sets us up to what's going to happen at the end of the movie, because you see Rocket and Maurice and everybody, they kind of take charge and come up with their own plan and go through that stuff. And really a lot of that escape comes from them and not Caesar at all.
Yeah.
All right,
I'm rolling my eyes.
Can I seriously get back?
Video.
Can I get back to the human thing real quick?
Sure.
Yeah,
Mark, is
I've
there a
been
Looney Tune you want to talk about?
Spit it out for 15 minutes. So they make this big to do. Spoiler alert again. They make this big to do about the coming of the humans, and then you see that this other group of humans they're coming, and they've got helicopters and they're bombing the shit out of everything and whatever. So they overtake with a little bit of help from an awesome grenade toss from Caesar into I love exploding gas tanks are one of my favorite action movie things. And
Wait. But why did they put that gas tank there?
No part of that entire base made any sense, including the fucking wood and stone wall they were building to protect themselves from tanks and fucking hell.
So wait, Mark.
Only
what
thing I could
happens after that?
Yeah, thank you, Andy.
No, but we got to come back to the fucking gas tank. But go ahead.
Yeah, so I mean, this big to do is made of this group of humans that's coming, and so they overtake the base, and there's this moment where the monkeys have all escaped in the kind of chaos, and this group of humans, and actually there's a period, and I think we talked about this, but there's a period where it's actually not super clear that they're human. Like it almost be their faces are obscured to the point, and it almost looks like it could be like a monkey army that's coming into. And
I have never wanted anything so hard in my entire life as when they freeze on that scene when they've bombed out the whole base, the attackers, and they all are like rushing in, and they stop, and they turn and look at the monkeys, and they all have masks on, and I'm like, oh my god, please tell me they're fucking monkeys. Please tell me they're fucking monkeys.
They do telegraph it, right? Like that's not just that's not just me like wishful thinking. I mean, honestly, if that happened, that's awesome, but also just fucking insane and betrays like the whole premise of the series that there's just this like group of super evolved apes on the other side. But that's
I still think it would have been a great twist, because clearly we've seen that the apes have no concept of what's happening outside of their little group. So like, I don't know, I think it would have worked.
So anyways, that happens, and they notice the humans, once we know that they're humans, notice Caesar, and like, you think they're going to shoot Caesar, and then you hear rumblings from the mountain, and every single one of these humans is wiped out in an avalanche. Just so a group of people that we did not know existed until about 2/3 of the way through the movie, who are going to become the jumping off point for the climax of the movie, come in, heroically take over the base, let's say, and then are immediately destroyed by an avalanche. And I swear to God, they could have put a slide whistle in here, and it wouldn't have made it any sillier.
I think your assessment of a Looney Tunes death is pretty like.
It kind of reminded me of the end of Star Wars: Force Awakens on their planet when it started coming across in the big climax there.
That movie,
the snow planet and the trees, and
better though.
That was bad. Yeah,
because there's lights.
Star Wars was better than this movie. I don't know. I mean, if you are kind of like, if you're really interested in the lore and trajectory of the series, it is pretty disappointing. And just in that, like, it's just this very strange plot thread that is thrown in there, and it's tied up, but it's like just tied up in like literally the most ham-fisted way that you can possibly do it. So I don't know.
Like, just
that
so,
is,
in a
again,
series,
as someone who enjoyed this movie, I laughed at that, but I was like, I don't know about that.
In a series that it has always felt like it's had a lot to say, I don't understand why you have these two human factions fighting each other and never really get into why.
Yeah. So, all right, I'm going to offer a counter reading to this. And I agree, like, it's silly, it is Looney Tunes. But I think what the film is going for is very much this idea that, as this avalanche is happening, there's also all these shots of the apes climbing into trees. And there's very much this sense that what they're kind of alluding to is that humanity just is going to disintegrate no matter what. Like, they're not going to reconcile with each other. They don't have the evolutionary capability to come back from the collapse. But these apes, on the other hand, they do, and they can make it. And I think that that's what that ending is going for, but I completely agree that it's really silly.
Well, there's definitely a thing about, like you're saying, like, there is a thing about the physical nature of the apes that allows them to, it's a literal, like, because they can run up trees, like, they're able to
climb
survive.
the trees.
Yeah.
It's, I don't know.
I seriously though, why would you put a giant gas tank right behind your rickety ass wall you built? Unless you were trying, to commit suicide when they got there, but that didn't seem like they seemed like they were going down for a fight. So I don't understand.
So the only thing I could even speculate at and guess at is that they had them there for the idea that if they broke the wall, came into the courtyard, they could have blown them up that way. That's the only thing I could think of.
But it torches
Here's the other thing.
shit.
there's like a whole
Maybe
element,
they just need gas and didn't have anywhere else they could put the tanks.
but there's this whole bit where Woody Harrelson, part of one of his soliloquies, is explaining how the mountain that their base is built on is full of fucking weapons. So like two questions. Why, when he like kills Caesar's wife and kid, didn't they just like drop a bunch of bombs into that base once they found it? Like first of all, the colonel himself is like lowering himself in to like do this attack. Hey, how about send in a couple bombs and like take out all of the apes? Like that ends the movie right there. Second, now you've got all these guys coming attacking you. Instead of building a goddamn wall out of, wood and stone, take some of the weapons out of this mountain and shoot them at the guys. Like none of this makes any sense to me.
Also, I guess this is now I'm just gonna hop on this because why not? If the whole issue was that they were enslaving apes, this is the issue with the conflict between the humans. Like, why are they enslaving them to build a wall? Why don't they just kill all of them and then it's over with?
Yeah, it's.
Well, how about this to really blow your mind? If they had this mountain that was full of weapons, and they took the weapons out, like John was saying, to shoot at the bad guys, why didn't they park their gas tanks in the fucking mountain?
Yeah, well, exactly. Like, there's. You can go a million directions with this.
One more. If the mountain is full of weapons, why didn't I get a shot of Bad Ape shooting a rocket launcher? Because that would have been the greatest fucking game.
Oh my god!
I think all of you want this to be a Resident Evil movie, and it's not that.
I don't know.
Why is there no fighting in the race?
It's closer to a Resident Evil movie than I'm comfortable with, just for the amount of sort of like easy plot like holes that they could have filled.
Andy.
Fair. Yeah. So like one of the things that I've been thinking about a lot when it comes to this series, and I'm just gonna one of my main reservations of it is actually kind of its handling of gender. And this is going to be like kind of like highfalutin, but I just wanted to like float it out there real quick.
I'm with you. Let's do it.
So originally when Dawn of the Planet of the Apes was released, I wrote a blog post for bloodygoodhorror.com. Go check it out. It's entitled Apes and Earrings because I might have been under the influence of something when I titled that. And basically it's about how this film, because it's so hamstringed by its dedication to Caesar as a standard heteronormative masculine hero, it doesn't do a damn thing with any of its female characters. And this has been a problem like since the films, like since Rise, honestly. Like all the female characters are pretty much like either mouthpieces to give exposition or they're like romantic interests. And I would say that War for the Planet of the Apes is like the most egregious example of this, because literally like there's one female character who's voiceless and she only exists to help Caesar. And then Caesar's quote unquote wife is killed at the beginning of the movie. And, like we had a lot of back and forth on email about this. And I thought like a lot of people's responses like make sense and I'm totally understand them. But like my counterpoint to all of this is that like, yeah, like maybe they are going for some kind of like realistic version of like a patriarchal society as it's building. But at the same time, it's kind of like in this day and age, if you're making a science fiction film, you can do whatever you want with a society, and why don't you?
Well,
and it just seems like a missed opportunity.
I mean, I agree. Like, I don't think that it honestly, based on how deliberate certain things were in this movie and how not deliberate other things were, like I'm guessing it was just an error by omission. But I think if you're looking for, I mean, it doesn't necessarily have to be. Like, obviously, Caesar's built up to be the protagonist, like the main protagonist, and he's the leader of the apes. So it's not like you're going to flip that on its head. But even if you were like, even the gesture of including a female character in the kind of gang of people that goes with Caesar would have gone a long way to if not totally solve that problem, at least help with it, right?
Right, which is really interesting because Maurice, who's ostensibly like a male orangutan, is actually played by a female actor. So it's kind of like it's already there. Like,
oh, really? The motion capture actors?
Yeah,
actors? Oh, I didn't know that. Huh.
I see your point. For me and for listeners out there, this is no way at all reflects how I feel on women in society should be treated.
Oh,
I want that
boy.
to be clear.
I cannot wait to hear where you're going with
You
this.
should probably just stop.
And I did look it up on Wikipedia, so it's got to be true. But like chimps are a patriarchal society as a tribe and a culture. To me, I took that as they're turning into humans. They're turning human-like. They're evolving. They're not going to shake off everything from their past lives as just pure animal chimps. So that's going to. I see that the way that played out fit with like the chimpanzee part of them that still existed. And then in addition to that too, they are making these where they have to kind of tie into, to an extent, they have to tie into the original movies and the society that existed there. And in those original movies, that was very much a patriarchal society too.
But like that was the
Oh, it was also the
70s, right? And like
70s,
this,
yeah.
the problem is, and I think the point Andy's trying to make is that it's not just that it's not like overtly regressive. You know what I mean? It's not like they're abusing the women or that there's something like that happening. It's that they're just not there at all. It's not like,
Or if
it's
they
not
are,
like
they
a representation of
And they're not there with the
society
humans
necessarily.
They're
There's
not.
just like no female characters in this movie,
Nope.
and the one living female ape character, her entire plot arc is hold my baby. Like that's it.
And they're not there.
Yeah.
They're not there with the humans either. That's, I guess, the more glaring thing to me.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like,
Yeah.
and the other thing too is that, you know, like I'm like, I totally see what you're saying, Casey. And like a couple people like actually like mentioned this to me like after I originally posted that that blog post. But I would also like kind of counter that a little bit with like, well, then why the hell did they bother to give the quote unquote female apes jewelry?
Oh, I was
Like,
gonna
why
say.
are they wearing
I was gonna say
earrings?
boobs
Why are they wearing
because
like necklaces? Like it just doesn't make like I don't know. And it's like
But they loved them.
think,
Ladies love jewelry, Andy. What's your problem?
think about it.
yeah.
Lady Apes be shopping.
He went to
Sometimes,
Jared.
like, do you ever just think about the fact that someone's day job on this movie was to just go in and render ape boobs?
Yeah.
Like that's
I never
weird.
thought about that
That's
actually.
a weird
but
thing to do for your
here
job.
we are.
Just saying.
And the whole pressure of me while they're designing that ape boob. I hope Andy doesn't get mad about this.
Hope these boobs are representative.
I was gonna say there's a person who had to render several different versions of the ape jewelry, and then a person who had to pick the right one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All
All
right.
right, you want to do movie guide? Art?
Sure. Very quickly.
Okay, so speaking of regressive, movieguide.org is our favorite website that reviews mainstream films for objectionable content so that our poor virgin eyes and ears are not defiled. War for the Planet of the Apes features a strong anti-Christian, politically correct humanist worldview overall where sentient humans, God's ultimate creation, are evil and must be destroyed, with the villain and his henchmen overtly associated with Jesus Christ's self-identification of himself as the beginning and end, the Alpha and Omega. And the villain also plays America's national anthem, the Star-Spangled Banner, to his troops, mitigated by some moral elements, including a story premise promoting compassion over revenge. I don't understand why that's a bad thing anyways. And some...
Listen, you're not going
How
to teach my
dare
kid
you.
compassion over revenge, Mark.
I just imagine there's some real hot and bothered Christian dude who's like, revenge! And some Christian allegory where the false savior of the planet, the villain, crucifies the ape hero. Pardon? One H obscenity, one Jesus profanity, one GD profanity, and one light my God profanity. Strong, intense violence includes gunfire, humans shot by arrows, apes shot by arrows, and gunfire. An army of humans charges a group of humans in a makeshift fortress. Evil humans whip apes. Apes encounter dead apes on makeshift crucifixes. Hero ape is put on one of those crucifixes overnight and bitter cold and almost dies. Explosions, man shot point blank when he raises his rifle. Villain tells how he had to kill his own son because he was infected by a terrible disease. Character kills himself off screen with a gunshot. Heard no sex, no nudity, alcohol use, no smoking, and revenge, but it's rebuked, and villain forces apes to become slave labor. The end.
Damn humanists.
I didn't hear any
Well,
upper male nudity mentioned in that at all because this movie's full
I was
of it.
expecting it's literally
Right.
all ape. It's
Upper
all
ape
ape
nudity.
except for the one ape who's wearing a bubble vest.
It's ape.
Lower ape
Bubble
nudity.
vest.
Yeah, lower ape.
Ape wears human clothing.
All right, guys. Planet of the Apes. Do you recommend it, Andy?
Yeah, but like if you're gonna go to a movie theater and see it like on a big screen.
Mark?
Yeah, I mean it's big dumb fun. I like it.
Casey?
Yes.
John?
I'm saying no.
I would say yes, but maybe on video. Like, I think it hits the same notes as the other movies, but just in a less good package. And I honestly, after watching this, now that I've been really thinking about it, I think they're setting this up for more movies.
Yeah,
Matt
'cause
Reeves
why-
wants to make more.
Why else
I'm
would you
just
not give
so-
me a final, any kind of finality, you know?
I'm so happy Eric got to the same conclusion I did. That's my favorite part of this review.
Yeah.
That's all anyone should remember. Going
Right.
I
forward.
think you guys are going to have a moment.
You are my champion, Schnorrs.
Fair.
All right, guys, that's it for War for the Planet of the Apes. Let's take a quick break and do some fan mail.
After firing the nail gun, your opponent will hear the scream of galvanized steel, splitting the air at tremendous velocity. When you hear him suck his last breath, it is safe to stop firing.
Introducing Quake for the N64, now with a 2-player deathmatch.
Well, maybe one more shot, just for good measures.
Hi, I'm Kathleen Kinmont from Halloween 4 and Bride of Reanimator, and you're listening to Bloody Good Horror.
Send your emails to info@bloodygoodhorror.com or hit us up on Twitter at BGHorror with the hashtag AskBGH. And don't forget to pick up back episodes of the show at podcast.bloodygoodhorror.com.
And we are back.
I'm gonna call you a cheater for that trailer there.
Why?
Video game trailer? Come on, man.
We've done games before, just because you're not paying
Yeah.
attention, brah.
All right. Still cheating.
Where's the LAN party?
info@bloodygoodhorror.com, his email address. First up from Christian. 1 question, 5 words. Where is the Eric Show? Christian from San Francisco. It's on hiatus. It's coming back. Don't you worry.
After 2 episodes.
Yeah, I needed a break. I was really
I miss
burned.
you.
I was really burned out, man. I just wasn't sure what it was about anymore, you know?
I listened to you on my commute. I
Really took a
needed
turn
it.
in episode 2 and just couldn't recover.
Yes. I mean, I can tell you the real answer, but it's more boring and more depressing. So, anywho, next up, Chris.
Emirates.
Chris says, this is another great Eric question, and I'll allow Mark to answer this too. I'm watching the whole Halloween series, and there are multiple cuts of Halloween 6. Which one should I do? I really like his phrasing also. I would say
Do them all.
watch the theatrical cut. Don't worry about it. Then go through the whole series, and then maybe go back and do the producer's cut later. I don't think it's all it's cracked up to be. I think it's kind of a sloppily put together thing.
You definitely have to watch the producer's cut on VHS that looks like scrambled porn.
Here's the thing about the producer's cut. If you really want to get into it, the plot
I
of
thought you were tired.
the plot of Halloween 6 was mangled for a couple of reasons. The biggest one being that Donald Pleasance died in between when they did reshoots. So like he died, they had to reshoot the ending because it involved him being alive. So they did that, and then they also, like the producer's cut, the biggest thing it does is it restores all of John Carpenter's like musical cues, which I actually like what they did with the music in the theatrical cut better. It had kind of this edge to it that I liked. So, but there are a couple of key scenes in the producer cut that add exposition that really help stuff make like a little more sense. The plot of that movie is still total batshit nonsense, but there's too many other things, in my opinion, in the producer cut that make it the inferior film. So it's good to go back to later. Go back to it later, get that little added context, but go with the theatrical first. That's what I say.
Unless you're like super into Ruins, in which case go straight for the producer's cut.
I mean,
I don't think I've ever seen it, but I've heard you guys talk about it so many times.
I know what my next staff pick is.
No, dude, I already got it picked out. I'm ready to.
If you were ever like, I want this unstoppable, murderous force of nature to be stopped by some mahjong tiles, you are You are in for a treat.
There are some really amazing ideas in that movie, though. Unfortunately, much like this War for the Planet of the Apes, it's kind of
Are
a
they
mess.
are they mahjong related or
No. Think about
Is six
think
the
about
Paul Rudd one?
yes. Think about using Michael Myers to genetically engineer perfect killers.
I think that's Jason X.
Yeah, no, that's not Jason X. David Lynch is in Jason
Also,
X.
just because I keep wanting to talk about Baby Driver, there was a joke in the trailer, great Michael Myers joke in that movie.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh, speaking of like horror icons, I don't understand what Ready Player One is, and the trailer confused and angered me.
Oh my
So-
God! Well, Eric, if you had ever listened to a former spin-off show of Bloody Good Horror, Dad and His Weird Friends, Casey and I did an episode on Ready Player One once
Yeah.
upon a time. I can't believe you would love that book. That
It is
book
Yeah,
is
right
like
I
in
know a
your
lot of
wheelhouse.
people that love that book. Actually.
that book
Trailer
like fell
looks
out
cool.
of all of the things that you are into. Like it just fell out of your brain. I think you would love it.
Eric,
Yes.
if you like reading Wikipedia, but as a story, you would like Ready Player One.
I do actually, interestingly enough.
That's like you. Yeah, I think you were making a joke, Andy, but that's like literally what Eric does.
No,
He looks
no,
up
I'm
nerdy
being
shit on
serious. Like
Wikipedia.
that's like, yeah.
It's like everything that you are nostalgic about from the 80s in a movie. It is like
Yeah.
the most.
Okay.
It is the most
Well-
pandering
And did you guys
story of all
catch?
time. I'm way into it.
I feel
Speaking
like
of
I
the
don't know.
trailer, did you guys catch Freddy Krueger in it?
Yes. Yeah, he's getting like blasted away at one point. He shows up for like a quick second. All right, moving on. Toby's a patron. Would you all be down for helping chip in towards buying the legendary Clown Motel with me? We can have BGH cons there, movie viewings, live podcasting, and just generally creep people out. We can even have specialized rooms like Joe's Tap House, aka the Creepy Clown Bar with unhappy hour from 4 to 6 p.m. Wear your clown nose for half-priced appetizers.
I am pretty sure that is he just gave away his plot to murder all of us,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
he is pretending like we're going to be in on it.
Next up, Ray says, love the podcast. Just watched a great indie movie called We Go On that I wanted to put on your radar. Really blew me away. The two leads are fantastic. Would love to hear you review it.
It's
I'm
going
adding
on-
it to our list.
Have you heard of this,
Going on
Andy?
the multiple lists we have.
Have you heard of this, Andy?
I have not.
Oh,
Miles Grissom offers $30,000 to the first person who can prove to him that we go on after death.
Oh, that really
so it's
is
like
an O'Toole.
Martyrs? Is that what Martyrs is about?
Yeah, except for like all the part about offering
Bueller.
someone money and yada yada.
Bueller. Next up, Genre Syntax says, this is a long one. I was amused to hear Casey's story about watching Faces of Death with his dad over a plate of E. coli burgers. It reminded me of my introduction to horror, which also occurred at the hands of my father. He thought it was hilarious to make my brother and I watch movies like Child's Play before sending us home to our mother, who of course would end up spending half the night trying to convince us that our action figures weren't possessed by the soul of a gunned-down serial killer. But those nights watching Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street, Pet Sematary, and the like ended up sparking a passion for all things scary, which is only stronger today now that I am an adult and slightly less terrified of the dark. And now that my dad is gone, I find myself cherishing those memories even more as I continually look for the next film that's going to make me want to sleep with the light on. Of course, now that I'm in my 30s, nothing scares me more than my thinning hairline. He also says, speaking of those old movies, he went back and rewatched The Blob, the 80s Blob, recently and really liked it. And he says, anyway, love the show. It's literally the only thing I've listened to in the car since I became a patron a few months ago. Hoping to get to the meetup in Milwaukee so I can awkwardly goad you guys into an argument by pointing out that The Witch was poopy garbage and the Wandaverse is the greatest thing to happen to horror since Ernest Scared Stupid.
Oh my god.
You need to come to Milwaukee. We need to have that conversation.
Those are some hot takes right there, but I appreciate it.
Yeah,
That's from
Jesus.
Genre Syntax.
I was
Laying
packed
it
full of
out.
hot takes.
Next up, Dave. Dave says, I'm wondering what movies or scenes have always stuck with you guys. For me, a lot of those were from just watching things at a young age, like when my parents took me to see Silence of the Lambs at the drive-in, and the scene of Buffalo Bill in the mirror saying, would you fuck me? All the empty after-hours hospital scenes in Halloween 2, or the opening scene of It when the paper boat goes down the street drain and Pennywise appears. There's so many more that have shaped my love of movies or even given me reasons to check the back seat of my car when getting in at night. I believe that was after seeing Urban Legends at the theater. I'm interested in hearing some of yours. one that's always stuck with me, and it's a little thing. There's actually multiple moments in Halloween 4 for me that have always stuck with me, but the opening like 20 seconds where they're showing all these like spooky Halloween establishing shots of like farms with scarecrows and jack-o'-lanterns, and like there's this great like wind blowing sound effect, and you get this real Midwest desolate autumn thing going on. That always was like, that is like the embodiment of Halloween to me. Little things, like almost more little moments like that for me than like disturbing ones.
Yeah, I don't remember which Child's Play it's from, but it's one where like Chucky has a chainsaw and there's like a stairwell. Do you guys know what that's from?
What movie?
It's a Child's Play.
It's got to be one or two.
Stairwell, I think, is one or two. Yeah, I don't remember exactly.
Yeah, but like I can't remember which one it's from, but like there's like a sequence with Chucky with a chainsaw that like my family thought it was really funny to like always turn Child's Play on when I was like in the room because they knew I was terrified of Chucky.
I feel like that's,
and so
I feel
like
that's,
that is like ingrained in my head now.
So not to nerd the fuck out, but I feel like that's the first one, because in the first one they're in like a New York City apartment that I don't even think has stairs, and the second one he gets adopted by like a foster family that lives in a big like suburban house with stairs.
Oh, okay. Maybe I might be like combining.
Yeah, you know what? You know what? It's the second one, because he kills the father in the basement with, I believe, a chainsaw.
I would say most of the things, like, I don't know that I have like specific things that stick out. I mean, there are some, but there's a lot of like Jason kills that stick out for me, which is why I enjoy Eric's Jason remix video. The one that I'm like sort of most remembering, and you Eric, maybe you can tell me which one, Friday the 13th it's from.
I definitely can.
There's like, I think he like slices through someone and like basically like from like one side of their head to another, like down to their shoulder, and like they fall apart or something like that.
That sounds like Jason Goes to Hell, actually.
Well, and I was gonna say it might be Jason Goes to Hell, and there's also, is that the same? What is the sleeping bag kill?
7.
Okay, that's the other one that I always remember.
Yeah, I actually think we just found a category for BGH trivia, but Eric can't participate. Name that Friday the 13th based on the kill.
Oh God.
Well, we've got some ideas of like a Beat Eric round, so we'll have to take this under advisement.
Nice. I mean,
name how many different consoles they released Mortal Kombat on.
I mean, I have a lot of like trivia knowledge in very specialized areas.
Hey, that's useful.
Yeah,
we need some
time.
All right,
we'll take some notes, Eric.
One more email. Damien says, "Hello from Northern Ireland. Been listening to the show for a long time. Makes my morning drive worthwhile. Have any of you guys seen a horror film set in Ireland called Rawhead Rex? Definitely one for the nostalgia, but scared the bejesus out of me when I was younger. Keep up the good work as always. Your friend D. P.S. If you could find it in your heart, could you plug a friend of mine's horror game on Steam, Dead of Night? It's a lot of fun, and I think you guys might get a kick out of it." So there you go. I've never seen Rawhead Rex. Is that Clive Barker?
It is. It's written by him.
Yeah.
And it's actually getting another new restoration later this year.
Nice. It sounds like a thing like somebody would call their wiener. It always sounds dirty to me. info@bloodygoodhorror.com is the email address. We are also on Twitter @BGHorror. Mark, take it away and bring us home, please. I'm tired.
Okay, so we have people tweet us with the 2 hashtags. The first one is BGH Classics, and that's for people who are patrons, who are listening to back episodes and want to tweet us something silly that we said in a previous episode. This one's from Burninator Ben, episode 379. They look like people. Joe says, "Everything is better when you add the D, John. I miss your musk."
Fair.
All that away, and homoerotic comments directed at John, which is an entire category, and we should probably have a completely new hashtag for it. We also use the hashtag AskBGH. If you have a question, tweet us with the hashtag AskBGH, and we will do our best to answer it. This one's from Skizbot. What other movies have made you actively root against your own species?
I mean, horror movies are pretty good at that, but...
Jaws.
I don't know. Oh, Andy, what was the that movie with the dog? White God?
Friend?
No.
Oh, White God? Yeah.
Yeah. That one's up there.
That
I
was
think for
creepy.
different reasons, not necessarily rooting against the species, but just wanting all of the humans to die makes me think of the Piranha remake. Just because it was like just so delightful.
That's up there. That's a good one.
Okay, cool. Next one, also from Skizbot. Does anyone feel that Andy Serkis deserves some sort of award recognition for his motion capture performances?
Yeah, I mean they've been,
yeah.
you know, when you do that, you actually like your agents will actually like lobby the Academy and stuff to consider you, and they've been going hard to the hoop like every single time one of these movies has gone out, and I just feel like nobody's bit. I almost wonder if this being the third one, if they might like maybe I don't know, what's the one right before the Oscars usually? The Golden
Golden
Globes.
Globe.
Yeah.
Like maybe somebody will throw him a bone. I feel like. I mean, I think it's valid. Like you know.
Oh, I wouldn't even say that it's not valid. I think it's, I don't know. Like I'm not like super supportive of him getting like a Best Actor nomination, but like he should be winning awards. Like like there are like technical achievement awards that I don't know if that's like the same thing, but I don't know.
John, can we give him an award at a Back to Spooky School?
Yes, there you go.
I mean,
was
the
actually-
argument
so I'm
is
looking-
the argument is if it's fully mocapped, right?
Give him a spooky superlative.
Like it's fully mocap, so like yes, there's augmenting to it, but essentially like the emotion you're seeing in Caesar is ostensibly real.
Most
Yeah.
likely to be a chimpanzee, Andy Serkis.
He
Most likely to be a chimpanzee IRL, Andy Serkis.
he has won some awards. He won he won a bunch of awards for Lord of the Rings as mostly like outstanding ensemble. Like SAG gave them an ensemble award. I don't know. Whatever. I don't feel that strongly either way, but there's a lot of
Outstanding
actors that are
performance as a
good.
chimpanzee.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Next one is from JD Burge. Since animal CGI is apparently amazing now, what other creature features would y'all want to see with a gigantic FX budget?
Well, how about we didn't talk unless you guys talked about it last week. The what is it? The color of water or like the something of water?
The shape of water.
The shape of water.
Or water,
That looks
depending on where
fucking
you're from.
Incredible.
The strange
movie-
shape of your body's water.
I am very excited for that film, and that is like a perfect example of like another, essentially like 100% motion
That ain't
capture.
even a real animal, but yeah, that looks pretty sweet.
Yeah.
Also,
Is that
there's
not
a warning.
prequel for Hellboy.
There is a warning in that movie for graphic. It was like prolonged graphic nudity or something.
I saw
and I'm like,
that too.
It was very confusing to see that in the. So I don't know what that means.
In the trailer, yeah, I did notice.
But I'm intrigued. Oh Christ. Okay. Next one is from Femme Fatalisms. What animal's most likely to Planet of the Apes us, and would you watch that movie?
A raccoon.
I always go back to I can't remember what the name of the series was, but I feel like it was either on the Sci-Fi Channel or the History Channel, probably like 10 years ago, and it was about like how the Earth evolves over the next million years, and basically there's like super intelligent squid that's swing from trees like monkeys, and so I feel like maybe they're the ones that are going to Planet of the Apes us.
I want that.
Don't we know that like the cockroaches are gonna win? Isn't that like preordained?
Oh God, John, I don't want to talk about cockroaches. They're here. They're already here.
Palmetto bugs.
Did you say blugs?
Blugs.
Palmetto blugs.
Plug. Next one's from Danny JPEG. Eric isn't paying attention. He's only there to throw shade when someone slightly misspeaks.
True.
This one's from Danny JPEG.
Oh, I thought that was Danny's comment.
No, that was Mark's comment. This tweet is from Danny JPEG. What movie has the best premise yet the worst execution? For me, Belko Experiment.
Well, I thought that was fun.
I didn't think the execution on that was that terrible. I actually, I remember being very excited for what was the movie with Katie Holmes and the little monsters in the house.
Oh, the Del Toro thing.
Oh,
yeah.
the something darkness.
Yeah,
Total,
I agree. That's a pretty good pick, actually.
Are you afraid of the dark or don't be afraid of the dark?
Don't be afraid of the dark. I remember
So
being
much potential.
just absolutely terrified of that trailer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the movie itself was really not very scary or like super interesting, honestly, which was pretty disappointing.
Agree. That is a good pick.
Thank you. All right. That it? Okay, cool. Next one's from Seattle Screams. Are you fans of the original Planet of the Apes movies, and how do they compare for you?
Yes.
They're totally different. I think like I mean
Yeah.
those films are wonderful just for their sci-fi 70s kitsch value, I think, in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
You know.
I think that they fit in well with these prequels they made, though, as far not looks wise, obviously, but story wise, I think they shoehorned them in pretty well.
There was always an art design to like a subtle art design to those movies too that I found really interesting. Like,
I just want to know where the monkey sweaters came from.
I mean, it's we joke about like getting political on the show or whatever, but one of the Ape sequels, like the Apes have somehow come back to present day New York, and they literally form like the Black Panthers.
Yeah. Which one was it? Is it Battle for the Planet of the Apes? Maybe.
I think that was when they come back. I think that was the last one.
I think it's Back to the Future of the Planet of the Apes.
I don't know. They were all titled crazy, but yeah, like so. I mean, there is almost nothing more.
The strange color of your Planet of the Apes.
There's almost nothing more political than that original series. Like it was political from the very start.
So weird, that series. I liked them too, like as like sort of like time capsules, and they are interesting. Like they are super political. I don't know, like I don't think they like hold up super duper well. Like they're enjoyable, but they're also like they're emblematic of like a lot of flaws that 70s like effects driven
there was
sci-fi
a
had.
TV series too. I totally forgot about that.
Was it animated?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't know.
There was a Lunchbox series too.
Yeah, the only thing I remember from the original Apes is just feeling very hot watching Charlton Heston with a choker on.
Yeah. Hot in
I
a good
didn't
way or
realize-
hot in a warm way?
Just like a deep warmth.
There's a general heat. This is actually a good kind of transition from that question. Not Andy's point, but just that last question. This is from King Township Fit. Would a post-credit scene where it turns out this thing was a precursor to Tim Burton's Planet of the Apes ruin the series for you?
Was there a
probably might make
post-credit
it
scene?
better.
I kind of hung out for a few minutes and then I was
No,
like,
there
eh.
wasn't. I looked it up. There wasn't. I actually have never seen that, so I don't know how bad it was. Was it? I'm sure it was horrible.
Oh.
based
Yeah,
on-
it was pretty bad.
I mean, it's funny because it's like competently made, obviously, but it just doesn't make any goddamn sense.
Yeah.
Like no part of it makes sense. I actually like I could defend it, I think, on a couple of I haven't seen it in a long time, but I remember seeing it in the theater and it just doesn't make any sense.
It's kind of funny. I mean, that like time period, it's like they were experimenting with the idea of the reboot, with like Godzilla 2 and whatever. But now we are in reboot mania, and that was just like that was like the false start to the reboot trend that kind of had to wait 10 years to get moving again.
Cool.
Okay, next one, Johnny Sacco.
God damn it.
What animals would make for the best master of the planet?
Pandas.
Yes.
That's a good answer.
Strong came out. Did you know that was a question? Like, were you thinking about that?
I just saw it and I was like, oh yeah, pandas.
How about
Hippos.
stingrays?
No, dude, hippos are nasty.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I'm
it's-
saying. They'll just fuck shit up. They're just gonna turn on us one day.
They
They do
nasty.
that poop copter thing with their tail.
Are you talking about muck spreading, Casey?
Yeah, seriously, what more formidable foe than someone who can do a shit copter and just like swallow you in one bite? I mean, that's just terrible.
You got it. You guys won.
What is a Pikachu? Alex?
Well, it's like a yellow rat with the lightning tail.
No,
Okay,
I was just answering
Capybara.
Jeopardy style, Mark.
No, I know, but I was just being a smartass. All right, this last one's from Johnny Sacco. Who would win a planet made of Brock Lesnar or a billion Candymans
Oh, that's a good one.
hold together like Voltron? What the
Oh my god. It depends. If the Brock Lesnar
Okay.
planet will come together after a Candyman Voltron strikes it, then the Brock Lesnar planet. But if it doesn't recombobulate after the fact, Candyman wins.
See, I think that a Brock Lesnar planet would have its own gravitational field, which would pull anything nearby into it, and then it is so strong that anything hits it would just die.
So you're thinking of like a black hole Lesnar. That's what you're thinking.
I'm picturing like a.
That
I'm
is my
picturing
favorite. That's my favorite Soundgarden song.
I'm picturing like a billion Candyman Voltron blanket sort of situation, and paper covers rock. So I think that they win.
Black Hole Lesnar. won't you
Also,
come
this is the
wash
last
away
week,
the
so we're
Candyman?
done. But I just want to say that I am now accepting the word Candymans as the true plural of Candyman and not Candyman.
Yeah.
So
I heard you looking. I heard you looking for
I don't know
Candymans,
who has
bitch.
to edit what article, but Candymans is the official plural
I mean,
of Candyman.
I bet we could go edit the Wikipedia right now. Nobody would know for months.
Yeah, Mad Candymans.
Oh man. October 21st.
Eric did not freeze. He is just asleep at the mic.
No, I'm trying to find the name of the stupid Planet of the Apes sequel.
I mean,
Cool.
there's not that many of them. Like, I think there were 5, right, in the original.
Yeah, but they're not all showing up on an IMDb search for some reason. I don't know if they're named something else.
Mm.
All right, there was Planet of the Apes. Beneath the Planet of the Apes, that's the one where Heston comes back and they find the mutated humans who are worshiping the atomic bomb.
Mhm.
Escape from the Planet of the Apes is the one where the 2 apes go back in time. They escape the planet before it blows up, the doctors, and they go back to like 1970s New York. So maybe it's Conquest, which I think is then the story of their son, who's then, because she's pregnant, I think, in that previous one. So their son grows up and leads this like revolt of intelligent apes in modern day New York.
Sounds revolting.
Then the next one, we go
Is
back.
Battle.
We're back on the Planet of Apes, and it's like they're back to being like tribal warfare, basically.
It all makes sense.
Yeah.
Candymans.
Do you want to know what we're reviewing for the final staff pick of this 2017 round of staff picks?
Good God, yes.
We are reviewing Lucio Fulci's The Beyond.
Oh,
Oh.
nice.
Oh, that's awesome. I'm very into that.
Yeah, I've only
never
seen it.
so
I've seen it
been looking
once.
for it.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited to go
Look
back.
at John picking real movies for his staff pick. What
That's
the hell?
awesome.
I just saw that it's rated X, so that fits right with Mark's pick, right?
Yeah,
I think
dude.
I might have this on DVD.
Extended graphic
Yeah.
nudity.
It sounds pretty bonkers. I'm excited about it. So
Oh my god, I'm really excited.
It's
I
very
have
fantastic.
some great trivia about this movie in my head that I will share when the time is right.
So look forward to that next week.
info@bloodygoodhorror.com. Meet us in Milwaukee on October
21st.
21st.
Just
Great
sometime in
Lakes
October.
Distillery,
Yes.
Reanimator at the
To
Oriental
see
Theater.
A 4K restoration of Reanimator. Stay tuned to the Bloody Good Horror Twitter feed for more information on that. Book your tickets now, folks.
Don't delay.
Yeah. And next week, The Beyond. Schnorr's staff pick, the last in this round. So,
New Sophisticult should drop next week.
nice. Is that on the main feed or on the Patreon feed?
Probably just Patreon feed. Get your Patreon dollars in
That's
if you
right.
want to hear it.
All right, guys. It's going to do it for War for the Planet of the Apes. Hope you enjoyed the show. We'll talk to you next week.
Adios.
See you.
Farewell.
Bye-bye.